Okay, this week we're into tragedy, a form of drama, theater. In the Western world, it is the Greeks, of course, who have developed this form of art, this form of human expression, theater. But when we speak about theater, it's good to take a look at some of those first items on your fly sheet. Then afterwards I'll explain the rest of the fly sheet once everyone has come in, because there are still some people coming up the steps. But I'm going to start with the material, the origins of drama. Theater, we're told by scholars, the most likely situation is it arose out of the religious festivals of the day, festivals to Dionysus particularly, where there was lots of excitement. The religions were not a question of a synagogue or a church or a jamin, but rather festivals, celebrations, with lots of dramatic stuff happening. And so out of this expression came that was one of the main sources of drama and theater. The other, of course, is from the Homeric epics. And by now you know the epics generally were first of all narrated, they were acted out. One person would actually narrate the story and then actually play out the various parts, much like Rafiq Ali Ahmed in our own Lebanese theater world when he does his monologues. One person telling you the whole story but playing different parts. So the epics were narrated, and they were narrated dramatically. So from the epics and from the religious festivals, we got theater and drama. But theater and drama was not what you would experience in this auditorium. This is not a theater, this is an auditorium. Theaters in the last 30, 40 years have all been built, modeled really on this Greek picture you see there. This is a typical Greek theater. We still have some of them before some people come and destroy them all. But this is the remains of a Greek theater. And if you go up to Gulbenkian Theater at the LAU, you will see that was modeled in around the year 1970 on that. This hall was built in around the year 2004. We thought it was going to be a theater, but when it came out of the womb, it turned out to be this stupid auditorium. I'm sorry, forgive we were waiting for a real theater. So why? Because theater is the most interactive of all of the arts. You, the audience, play an extremely important role in the success or failure of that art form. The art form very much depends not just on the actors and the production and all of that, but also on how far the audience interacts. Much like a CVSP lecture. I mean, CVSP lecture, if you're participating in the lecture will be much more successful. If you're not, la samahallah, then the lecture will be even worse than it would have been had you not sort of participated fully. So, theater, this is, it was kind of like, if you take a look at the last item on those introductory arrows there at the top of the page, an amphitheater. Orchestra, the dancing place, it started off with dancers down there at the bottom, but with the audience wrapped around the action. So the audience was able, see those of you in the back, I can barely see you, you can barely see me here. If you go up to Gulbenkian and theaters that are modeled like that, you'll see that you are much closer to the action, and so you can see how you are participating in what's happening. The actors can actually see you. You can see the actors eye to eye, and what happens is a very exciting form of human expression. Now, some of the items I'd like to mention about it, though, are the other arrows, whatever they are, at the top of that fly sheet. Tragedy, Thespis. We get the word thespian from that. This was in Athens around 534 before the Common Era. And we have primarily basically what came to be known as the golden age of Pericles. In Athens, this 100-year period, produced the likes of Thucydides, Socrates, and Sophocles. Socrates philosophy, and you'll be getting more of that in 201 for the rest of the semester. Thucydides you've had now for history, and now you're getting into drama, Sophocles. These are just three of the great achievements that have lived on to today, created traditions in history, traditions in theater, traditions in philosophy. They're living, and people who simply imitate them and repeat them are, in a traditionalistic fashion, are killing the life that's in them. But those who take the life that's in them and then go from there are keeping the tradition alive and moving them in. And this is what has happened in the world of history, in the world of theater, in the world of philosophy. People continue to be inspired by these three great people, but they're inspired by the life in them, not just repeating and becoming a Sophoclism or a Thucydidism or a Socratism, but rather the life within them. So we're in the world of the world that you've already been introduced to in Thucydides, of course, and democracy is an extremely important point here now. The democracy that you saw was analyzed by the historian Thucydides. You will see how it plays up in Socrates and Plato and some of the others later on. But in the world of Sophocles, in the world of drama, democracy actually is extremely important to understand the understanding of democracy. Democracy here meant, the beginnings of democracy, and democracy has developed in many directions beyond what it was there, but all the free male citizens of Athens were expected to come out and attend these theater productions, because the theater productions were perhaps the most political event, with the word political now being much, much more important. You've been introduced to it probably through Thucydides. The polis, humanity, human community. You can't be a human, fully human, outside of a truly human community. And so democracy played into this understanding of human life. And basically, the people would come out to see how the great poets of the day, like Sophocles, how they would update ancient legends. So the story of Oedipus the king, the man who was fated to kill his father and marry his mother, was not the invention of Sophocles. This was an ancient legend. Now we are seeing how Sophocles gives life to this ancient legend by taking the heart of it, but then reinventing it for the present of Athens, the democracy. And so that's going to be very important to keep in mind. There are three major aspects I'm going to try to speak about. They're on the very first page of this fly sheet. And as I speak about these three major aspects, these three major human items that are very important for us to understand, humanly speaking, the way they understood the world, the cosmos, the universe, the way they understood the polis, human society, human community, and the way they were guided by, finally, the two injunctions of the god Apollo, which had come to be, seek your identity in the fullest possible way. Know thyself is the ancient way it was said, but it meant seek your identity fully. And the second one, balance is best. Live a life at its heights. Do the best you can. And the best for the Greek was always a harmonious best, a balanced best, a bringing together of many factors, but into the best possible combination to give you balance is best. So the two guidelines for human life, the two commandments of Apollo, primarily were an injunction to live your life at its heights. To live our lives at the heights, we have to know who we are. We have to seek our identity. Who am I? Am I just simply a person who's living, who's born here and living in that society and coming to this school and all this? No. Who am I? Meaning, who am I within this universe? And primarily using my mind. The Greeks now, you've had the Odyssey and Odysseus. The mind is extremely important, using reason to sort of investigate who you are. And primarily it comes to mean, of course, know what are your true limitations and what are your true capacities. And to seek this is not simple, it's not easy, but that's what will make life really worth living. The more you really continue to seek to know more and more fully what are your true capacities and what are your true limitations, the more you'll reach the balance of who you are as a human being. And then the second injunction, balance is best. Also, it means whatever it is you are doing, do it in the best possible way. All right? Again, you have to bring together all the factors that are there in your life, bring them all together and do things in the best possible way. That's the life of reason. That's the life of humanity. That's how it has come to what it has come to mean, humanly speaking, by the time of Sophocles and Socrates and Thucydides. because Apollo was just one of the gods in the past. So let me now spend some time on these three major items, because my apology for the lecture I'm giving and the interpretation I'm giving, these are great works that you're reading, and they inspire many, many interpretations. There's only not one interpretation. I'm going to justify the interpretation I'm giving. I'm going to try to interpret this play in a way that will help you to understand the tradition of tragedy and tragic literature and tragic opera and tragic, wherever tragic enters in philosophy, in art, in whatever. The word tragic itself needs expression, needs understanding. So my lecture is going to, hopefully by the end of this lecture, if you've got nothing else, you'll have a bit more of a light about what is meant by tragic and how has it been carried on into our own day today in many different forms, in different situations, but the heart of what it means to think the world we live in is tragic. The essence of human life is that it's tragic. What does that mean? All right? You're going to be going into rationalistic philosophy with Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and the rest of the people in the semester in 201. There you will see humans expressing their take on life, their perspective on life, finally, that it's rationalistic, that the world we live in is rationalistic. In tragedy, the primary difference is going to be they both believe man is primarily rational, the rational animal. When Aristotle defines it, he's simply reflecting what has come to be, the common understanding. Reason is our supreme guide in humanity, but different philosophical conclusions about human life can come up from that. I may be rational. My best hope is to use my reason at best, but is the world I live in rational? Is the world I live in going to fit in with my human reality? Is there a synchronism between my humanity and the cosmos, the world itself? The philosophers are going to tell us yes. You're going to see with Plato and the others that if we use reason properly, then the more we use reason, the more we will be in unity with the cosmos itself. Well, the major difference with the tragedians is not that they're against reason or they have that they don't think reason is very, very important. They come to the conclusion that reason is very, very important, but the world we live in, the cosmos, is not made to satisfy a creature that happens to be rational. We are the rational animal, but the cosmos is not the rationalistic cosmos. And that's what I'm going to hope to try to make clearer to you. Now, the rest of the fly sheets you have are simply something that I would invite you to read after the lecture, not now, and see whether you were able to get the main points in the lecture as it's then put out in written form for the rest of those lines. On the very last page, you'll get the items that are sort of the conclusive items for you to think about at the end of the lecture about what human life is like. I give you those points to read there and hope you at the end of the lecture you'll be able to read them fluently. And then there's a section there, further reflections on the tragic. And I'll say a few words about it now because I never reach it. There's so much to do in this kind of a lecture. But I want to say something about that. The tragic is to be compared with the comic, but not in any ordinary understanding of these words. We usually think of tragic as, weepy and, it's all negative and I don't know what. And we think of comic as, ha-ha, funny. Tragic and comic come to mean much more serious aspects of our humanity. Tragic means the frustration in our humanity, the frustration of when we do try to do our best, when we look at see people who are trying to do their best, and we see they're not rewarded. All right? That's what tragic finally means. But at its heart is greatness, grandeur. Tragic attracts people because it kind of flatters us, if you like. It tells us, you, the human, are the center of everything. It's up to you to be great. And the great human is indeed great, because the great human will be great as such, intrinsically, self-respect, will serve humanity, the polis, and will have a name that will endure, but will not be rewarded, will have to pay the price of suffering for this greatness. But why it attracts people, certainly not in our common global culture anymore, where comfort is the main goal in life, and suffering is the worst enemy. This is a very sort of heroic kind of approach to human life, and it filters into primarily atheistic existentialism in the 20th century, and that basically, there's no good God, there's no rationalistic world. It's just the world is just there. It's up to me to create my own life, in a sense, to give meaning to my own life by doing the best thing, by doing everything. And that suffering is not my worst enemy. My worst enemy is to be a mediocre slob. Mediocrity is my main enemy. To be a nobody, as Professor Smith in his lectures, I'm sure, has given you about the Odyssey, the importance of being a somebody rather than a nobody. The worst thing in life, for the tragic thought, is to be a nobody, not to suffer. So therefore, basically, suffering is the medium for insight, for growth, for wisdom. The whole sort of later philosophical abstract debate, are we free or are we determined, mukhayyar or musayyar, these are silly sort of reductionistic philosophical exercises. But what great literature presents, and great philosophy then, of course, investigates, is the two aspects of our humanity. Our humanity, in some aspects, we're determined, we're not self-sufficient and a god or something, but we have responsibility. So the free will is simply a reflection of the recognition in understanding who we are, that we are responsible. We can't blame everybody else for it. But on the other hand, we're not totally responsible. We have been formed by history, by society, by our genes, by et cetera, et cetera. So the two aspects, it's not free or determined, but free and determined. And all these things you will see in the play of Oedipus the King. Tragic choice means that it's no-win situations. The world we live in doesn't offer us win-win situations. In fact, it offers us, in one sense, no-win situations. Oedipus has a no-win situation. He's going to kill his father and marry his mother, no matter what he does. But what he does makes of him a hero, gives him a good name, saves the polis, humanity. All right. So tragic choice means there's an inevitability at play. There's a cosmic booby trap. No matter what you do, don't expect that you're going to win. Oedipus's heroic character in the play, he responds to external circumstances in a heroic way, but this leads him to his doom. He's told he's going to kill his father and marry his mother. Being a heroic, rational human being, all right, he then decides he's going to do the rational, heroic thing. He's going to leave his polis. He's going to leave his home. He's going to leave. This is not a simple thing that Oedipus decides to do. It's a very heroic thing, responding to the heroic character that's being represented symbolically in Oedipus. Okay? But what he does then simply meshes into the cosmic structure of things. And he goes to where his true father and true mother are, and winds up unknowingly and only in self-defense, killing the man who's his actual father, sleeping with the widow of this man, not knowing that she is his true mother. So this is the kind of symbolic stuff that's being said, and we're to try to understand through the symbolism. What's it saying about actual human life? So the Peloponnesian War that you've had, so I can refer to this here. This is the context now for these people, certainly for Plato, that you're going to be reading next week as well, but for Sophocles here. The Peloponnesian War destroyed the fabric of Greek life and generally led to sort of mediocrity, corruption, all the stuff you had in the Peloponnesian War. Okay. And there are two radical responses to this that are coming out of the Homeric world. And that's the reference. The Homeric world itself was neither tragic nor rationalistic. It had tragic elements in it, which the tragedians are now exploring. And it had rationalistic elements in it, which the philosophers, through the character of Odysseus primarily, are pursuing. So now the Homer had two children, if you like, two offspring, the tragic poets and the rationalistic philosophers. From the philosopher's point of view, as you will see in the Republic, the miseries of the Peloponnesian War and of humanity generally can only be solved if we pursue rationally the best possible polis, that's his republic that you're coming to, the best possible way for human beings to live, the best education system, the best institutions, the best rulers. If we can go into that direction, we can avoid the miseries of war after war after war. The tragedians didn't agree. They thought that that's life, that's human nature, that's the way the world is. There are always going to be these miseries and these negative things. And so for the tragedian, and that's what I'm going to try to be hoping to help you see from the play, for the tragedian, all that's left for you is to use your reason as well as you can, but don't expect that you're ever going to have the ideal republic in any way. You're never going to have you're never going to escape the miseries of war, because the universe isn't made to make humans happy. This is not a universe. This is not a human-centered universe. It's just the cosmos, and you just happen to be one aspect of this cosmos, one aspect of this universe. And from the tragedian's perspective of it all, the cosmos is not made for you, for your happiness. All that's left for you is to do your best, to make yourself. You're the one who gives meaning to human life. So we're left, in other words, with poetic insight, leading us into this tragic view, if you like, and rationalistic analysis coming up, and I'm sure you understand what that means, because we're living in, in the university, we're living in a rationalistic atmosphere. Rationalistic analysis, poetic insight, these are coming up now in the Greek world and living on into our world. Okay? At the time, they were fighting each other. All right? So Plato, you will see in the Republic, wants to kick out all the poets. Even though I hope you will be told that he himself started off as a tragic poet before he then becomes a rationalistic philosopher. But from the perspective of the 21st century, hopefully one of the things we try to help you see in all of the courses you're taking is that you don't need to just go back and fight battles of the past. You may find something very serious and useful and insightful in the poetic insight of the tragic understanding of life, as well as in what you're more used to doing, finding your stuff in rationalistic analysis. Okay, so what's left for me in this the short time I have is to explain the 3 items on page 1 of the fly sheet: Homer's cosmos, the polis, and the god Apollo, and the kind of guidelines he gives for living the best human life. If I can explain these 3 things and refer in reference to the play that you're dealing with, I will have been able to do something to get you going in this direction. Let's first of all speak about the play. I know you've all read it, and this is going to bore you silly, but I will go through the play quickly, just for those who haven't yet had the chance to read it. Okay, basically the story is that Oedipus spends his childhood days in the polis of Corinth. However, he hears at a party or something, somebody says, you think you're somebody, I'm quoting him in word for word, of course, I'm just obviously ad-libbing, but basically that, you're going to kill your father and marry your mother. He hears this, and as a rational human being, this bothers him. So what does he do? He goes off to the god Apollo. Why does he go to the god Apollo? I'm sorry, I'm just not going to go through the whole thing because I would never get through it. The god Apollo is centered at Delphi, and Delphi comes to be the heart of life, if you like, for much of the peoples of the area. When kings and emperors or whatever wanted to know about what to do next, they didn't go to Brussels or Washington or Tehran or Moscow or any place like that. They went to Delphi because that was the place where you get in touch with the god Apollo. And this god Apollo had become a very, very powerful boy. At Delphi, you get, the priestesses of the god go into a trance, and the god whatever the word is, possesses them, and they give out oracles. Okay, things like the sun will rise in the east tomorrow, very deep stuff. Oedipus will kill his father, marry his mother. Socrates is the wisest man in Athens. I hope your teachers introduce you to that, even though we're not doing the apology anymore, but this is the heart of really Socratic thinking. He's the wisest man in Athens because he's the only one who recognizes he doesn't know his own ignorance. In other words, this is philosophical humility. But this comes, first of all, to Socrates through the god Apollo. Socrates is the wisest man in Athens. CVSP is the most enjoyable and beneficial program in the cosmos, and for the latest revelations, log on to www.oracleofdelphi.com. Okay, this is so why is Delphi so important? Because that's where, that's your first source of truth, okay? I'm going to take the example of Islam, all right? For a Muslim, you go to the Quran, first of all, the divine thing. Then you go to the prophetic source. So the next thing that Oedipus, first he goes to Delphi, to the divine source, to try to get some understanding of why does he have to kill his father, marry his mother, all right? What does the god do there? And this is in the text, and it's in one of these slides. The god spurns him and tells him, you have a horrible fate coming at you. Doesn't help him at all. Gives him just so he then does what any rational human being would do at the time. He decides he's going to run away from home. So that's the second thing he does. He then runs away from home. You have to bear with me. Yeah. So the childhood days in Corinth end with him running off from Thebes so he can put as much distance between his father and his mother as is possible. You see, what else can you do if you're a rational human being? Well, what do? Wait around, sort of sitting around with a knife in your hand and your zipper open? For the day when you will, faithfully kill your father, marry your mother. He does the rational thing. He responds as a rational human being. He tries to put as much distance between himself and that. He's off to Thebes. But in running away from Thebes, running away from Corinth, he goes into the direction of Thebes, where we first meet him in the play, the actual play that you read. Okay, as he's going in that direction, at a crossroads where three ways meet, he meets lots of Range Rovers and motorcycles, Al-Yamin, and they attack him. Right? He's a hero. He defends himself. And one of the persons who's particularly trying to hit him, he kills him, the leader of this whole thing. One person survives. Remember, this is a play. This is symbolic. If one doesn't survive, who's going to tell the story? So one survives, but he gets rid of all the others. As he comes now into Thebes, he meets the Sphinx. This Sphinx is not Abul Hol of Egypt, but a half bird, half animal. So there are many forms of the Sphinx, in other words. And the Sphinx has a drop quiz, a hajiz, first of all. You can't go in or out of Thebes if you're a handsome young male like myself. You cannot go in or out without answering this drop quiz, you see. And so anyone who hadn't taken CVSP 201 or 205 would not know how to answer it, you see. So they didn't know how to answer it. So what she would do is she would devour them in a sexual embrace and kill them. Praying mantises, I think, do things like this if you're biology students. But anyway, so here comes Oedipus, you see. What is Sophocles telling us? What's he symbolizing through everything that this guy does, that Oedipus does? He comes, and the drop quiz is, what walks on 4 feet at dawn, 2 at noon, and 3 at dusk? Handsome. So what do you think he said? The human. All right? The human walks on 4 in the morning, 2 at noon when you're strong, young and strong like myself, and then on 3 with a cane like you decrepit students there, right? When you get older. So now, given the way the cosmos operates in this structural fashion, according to laws and given structures, all right? Now this brings the defeat of the Sphinx. So the Sphinx has to lift its curse off of Thebes. So Oedipus has saved the polis of Thebes. Don't forget that item. That's how Sophocles is presenting the story. This man has saved Thebes from this horrible curse. So he goes in, and what happens? They discover Oedipus has saved Thebes from the curse of the Sphinx. Triumphant entry into Thebes. They elect him Tyrannos because they've just heard that their king was assassinated. Who is the king who was assassinated? The guy who attacked him and whom he killed, who also happened to be his daddy. All right? But he had no idea this was his daddy. He had no idea who this guy was. He was attacking him. He was simply defending himself. This is how Sophocles is presenting him. Don't think of Oedipus as somebody else presents him. Text study, primary text. Study how this particular text, how Sophocles is choosing to present this symbol of Oedipus throughout this work, carefully presenting him as a man of reason, a hero, a man who can defend himself, So they elect him Tyrannos, and so the play is called not Oedipus the king, but Oedipus Tyrannos. But why do they say Oedipus the king? Because in common English, Tyrannos now gives you the connotation of a tyrant, and Tyrannos here simply meant he was an elected king. Isami, he's proud of this. He didn't inherit the kingship, he earned it, he was elected. And of course now the king has been killed. He has a queen who now is a widow. He has been elected as the king. He inherits the widow. The widow, of course, happens to be his true mother. You see, his real father and mother are in Thebes. Why is he there in Corinth? It's because the true mommy and daddy heard this prophecy that they were going to have a child who was going to do nasty things to them. So they tried to, get away. When they had a baby, they gave the baby to the shepherd. All these people are the characters in the play. To the Theban shepherd to put him out into let the baby die. The shepherd had a heart, and he had a friend who was a Corinthian shepherd. And so he gives the baby to the Corinthian shepherd because he knows that in Corinth, the king and queen don't have a child. And so the Corinthian shepherd takes the baby, Oedipus, to the Corinthian king and queen. They adopt him. They never tell him he's adopted. He never knows. He doesn't have an idea that he's adopted. He thinks he's his true father and mother. So when he hears this, Oedipus hears the prophecy that he's going to kill his father, marry his mother, he tries to run away, to do the only rational thing a rational human being can do. When he went to the divine, and the divine didn't help him. He tried. He did his best. Okay, well, Apollo doesn't help him. He spurns him, and so he goes off to Thebes, triumphant entry. Now follows an ideal reign as leader and protector of the polis. So when we meet him at the beginning of the play, we hear all these other details later in the story. But when you start the story, he is the king of Thebes. And the people of Thebes are all coming to him. And they note how Sophocles expresses their view of Oedipus. Not what somebody else is telling you to think about Oedipus. Listen to how the text itself, the primary text, is telling you to consider this man. He's being set up from the beginning as an ideal ruler, someone whom the people say he's an ideal ruler. He has, his whole heart is on the polis. So when you read those first pages, notice how many times Sophocles refers to the city or the city-state or the polis. Notice how Sophocles is careful to present Oedipus as the one whose heart is on the polis. And the polis means the community, humanity, the people. All right? So he's presented as an ideal leader, an ideal protector of the polis. However, they've come to him now because there's a new curse. The curse of the Sphinx has been lifted, but now there's a new curse on the world. In this tragic world, the world is a world of curses. It's not a world of benevolence or rational opportunity. It's a world of curses. But you are the one who have to make a difference. You're the one who has to find meaning. You're the one who has to help humanity. So what does he do? There's this plague, Ebola probably, not swine flu. I don't know what it was, but there's a plague hitting. In those first pages, everything, all of human life has come to a standstill. Women are not giving birth. The agriculture isn't working. Everything, the whole of the nature, the humans, everything has come to a stop under this curse. And so, as the leader of the polis, he wants to find out what's going on. So he sends Creon, his brother-in-law, where? Brussels, Tehran, Damascus, Abda. I just want to see if you're awake. Washington, Moscow, all right? He sends him to Delphi, all right? You see, he does the rational thing that he can do. You have just so much knowledge. Whatever knowledge he has, he's using it at his best. He sends to Delphi to find out what's going on. And at the same time, he also sends for the prophet, Tiresias. So first you go to the divine source, then you go to the prophetic source. Right? See, this is a common kind of a thing in religious societies and outside of religious societies. You seek the highest authorities, meaning that's the point. The highest authority is Delphi. The next highest authority is the prophet of the god Apollo. He sends for them. Okay. What they find out, of course, is that King Laius was assassinated and he hasn't been avenged. Cosmic, social, private chaos, inevitable nemesis has to be has to fall on the humanity and on the polis until the culprit is brought to justice. This is the mechanism of justice. It's automatic, it's mechanical. A king has been killed, it has to be revenged. It hasn't been revenged, then everything's going to be in chaos. You're not going to have harmony if that's happening. The story continues. Oedipus reprimands Creon when he finds out that your king was killed and you didn't seek to do something about it. So if you're reading the text, Creon tells him, well, we were so busy with this and the Sphinx convinced us not to do it, and blah, 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 blah. My pinky was hurting, and so I didn't study enough for the exam today, sir, please, give me... From Oedipus's rational, political position as protector of humanity, Creon, who had become the protector of the polis, didn't bother to pursue the murder of a king, which in this climate was the most horrible thing. He cannot understand it. Now he starts to form in his own political logic what's going on. Why was this king killed? Creon didn't do anything about it. So he accuses them of criminal neglect. When he vows to he says, okay, you didn't do this. This was criminal neglect. I'm going to solve the problem. I'm going to execute justice. And he proclaims this radical curse, this ironic curse on the guilty party, whoever he is, even if he's a member of my closest people, I'm going to bring him to justice. You didn't, I'm going to. You see, he's the ideal ruler. He's doing his duty. He's doing his best. So he's sent to the divine source. Now he sends to the prophetic source. Tiresias arrives. And this is one of the nicest passages for you to look at if you want to do sort of a text study and look at the words that are being used. Notice how carefully Sophocles sculpts this particular passage, the interaction between Apollo, between Oedipus, whose main concern is the polis, the city, and Tiresias, whose main concern is pain and pain and pain. All right? This is the kind of thing that Sophocles is presenting to us. The contest between, am I going to be a somebody or a nobody? All right? And what does it mean to be a human? The more I can be like Oedipus, the more human I will be, the more I'm going to be like Tiresias or your Creon or your Casta or the chorus or any of the rest of the people in this thing, the more I'm going to wind up being a nobody. They keep telling him in one way or another, don't seek the truth because it's going to give you pain. And he says, I'm going to seek the truth because the truth is the only thing that will save the polis. Right? This is how Sophocles is sculpting this work. If you're following the text, and not some theories about tragedy that are very interesting, but they may not help you to understand what Sophocles was doing. And of course, you can disagree with everything I say. This is just, I'm trying to tell you why I'm giving you this interpretation. Okay, so basically, what happens? Tiresias arrives. They have a fruitful diplomatic exchange. You'll see when you read it. They fight, and so when Oedipus insults the prophet, then the prophet gives the truth. Because he comes, he says, I know the truth, I have the remedy for humanity, but I'm not going to give it to you because it's going to cause me pain, it's going to cause you pain. Oedipus, pain, who cares about pain? So his political mind, okay, Creon didn't do anything about it. This guy doesn't want to say it. Conspiracy theory. It must have been, he was a good Lebanese. But anyway, Oedipus comes to the conclusion that there must be a plot there. Creon and Tiresias obviously wanted to take over the ruling, but I messed things up by showing up at that moment. Oedipus shows up, the people elect him king, I spoil their plots. That's the only thing that he can understand, how humans in this context of this understanding of the polis, this understanding of the cosmos, this understanding, you have to get into the understanding that's being presented in that climate. Okay, he, using his mind, his very flawed mind, that's one thing that's being said, but using his mind, that's all he has, gets no help from the gods, no help from the prophet. Using his mind, the best conclusion he comes to is that there must be a political plot. So he accused, when Tiresias does give him the truth, it appears like he's just getting, it's just like, you've attacked me, I'm going to attack you, because Oedipus starts to attack Tiresias when he won't give the truth, and he has the truth. All right, so what does Tiresias do? Not for concern for the polis, but only concern for his own. He's been ruffled personally, and so he then gives the truth. You're going to kill your, you're the meaning. You're the one. You're not who you think you are. You're the source of the plague and all of this. So Oedipus concludes that Creon and Tiresias are part of a plot to depose him. The plot thickens. The murderer. Now, what happens as we go through this? Finally, after sending to the divine, sending to the prophet, doing a criminal investigation, bringing in all the witnesses, his wife, the two shepherds, all right, asking the chorus for more information, giving a rational political investigation of what's happening, all right, he finally discovers his true identity. So he has been pursuing self-knowledge the best way he can. And he comes to self-knowledge, but it's horrible. He's not rewarded for doing this wonderful search for self-knowledge. He's not rewarded because the self-knowledge turns out to be miserable, because this is not a nice world, it's not a rationalistic world, it's not a monotheistic world. It's just the world, it's just the cosmos. That's all there is there. But he's been doing his best as a political ruler, going to the best sources and doing the best investigation, the best he can do. The tragic message, of course, here is that his problem and the human problem is the blindness, and that's the symbolism that's being used there. We are blind, and our best resource is our reason. But our reason is radically limited in terms of really understanding everything. So we must use it. We have nothing else. We use it at our best. When we do use it at our best, we do the best for ourselves and the best for society, the best for the polis. But don't ever think you're going to really just be able to know what's going on. Because beyond the political level and the private level, there is the cosmic level. And it's the cosmic level that leads you to the tragic. Anyone who believes the world they live in is not primarily rationalistic, is not primarily monotheistic or anything like that. But that on the contrary, the world seems to be nasty. The world seems to not reward goodness. The corrupt people of the world seem to be the happiest. The good people seem to be subtleys. They stand there waiting for a red light to become green, or they actually listen to a CBSP lecture. So if you really start to kind of believe that's what life is all about, you're on your way to understanding. Because that's what we're trying to do, empathy. We're trying to understand these points of view. We're not trying to say whether we agree or we disagree. That's our evaluation. But we must first try to understand each perspective that we look at in these humanities courses that we take and in everything we do. So the tragic view is basically this. What has happened? He's discovered his true identity. He's done his best according to Apollo's 2 commandments. But the result is he has to suffer for it. He has to pay the price of his own happiness for it. Order is restored. Thebes is saved again. So Sophocles has presented him as a very rational, a very wonderful political leader, but trying to present the point of view of the tragedian is, don't think that just because you do that, you're going to be rewarded. So why should you do it then? Okay, that's the tragic logos, that's the tragic puzzle. People who take up this view of life, they say, well, I don't care about reward. I don't care about external reward. I'm more concerned with the quality of my own life, my own dignity. All right? Make a name for myself, be a somebody. And as I do this, the message of Sophocles is I will be serving humanity. He saves the polis twice. And don't underestimate that aspect. And so these are the 3 aspects on the first page there. Homer's cosmos, the polis, and Apollo. The last 2 I mentioned at the beginning, and I'll mention again now. They're the easiest to understand. And I'll spend a little more time with you on the understanding of the cosmos that is operating in this particular work. And that leads to a tragic conclusion about life, a tragic perspective. The polis, as we've said, for this Athenian climate, is extremely important. It's not just another place, it's not just another city or city-state, it's not just any city-state. It has to be the kind of structure, the kind of community that you see in Athens, where you have an experiment in democracy, all right, and where all the free citizens are actively involved. Sophocles was a priest of Apollo. He was a general in the army of Pericles, and he was a great tragic poet. So the ideal, you know, the kind of later on we speak about the Renaissance ideal. You know, don't be just a nerd specialist getting your BA and your BSc, but, you know, come to university so you can get as broad an outlook on life, a start in life, because that's what university gives you. You know, get the broadest possible view of things. And so this was the kind of ideal. So the polis, and therefore Oedipus as the champion of the polis, Oedipus as the savior of the polis, this is not just another item in this work. This is at the heart of what Sophocles is giving in this particular play, according to my understanding of the play. So Oedipus is presented as the upholder and guardian of authentic humanity. You cannot live your humanity as a Tiresias. You may be a psychic, you may be a fortune teller, you may make billions of dollars on TV now. They're making lots of money, you know, the Maggie Farahs and the Layla Abdul Latifs and all that, you know, but that doesn't make you a human being, right? To be a human being, you have to be concerned for the polis. Tiresias doesn't give a hoot about the polis. All right? So Tiresias is a prophet, but prophet here simply means a psychic, a fortune teller. It doesn't have any moral connotation, doesn't have any political responsibility connotation. It's just simply, you know, he's blind physically, but he sees. You see, this is the play in the symbolism. Oedipus has eyes, but he doesn't see. So he has external sight, but he lacks insight. Tiresias doesn't have, he's blind, but he has insight. But this is not related to any morality or any sort of rationalistic or monotheistic or any other kind of morality. It's related to a tragic morality. And the tragic morality is the one you get in Homer. There is a morality in every system, but the morality is an aesthetic morality. Order is the key issue. Things are in their place. When they're in their place, you get justice, you get morality. There's no human consideration. So if you flip up to the Homer's Cosmos section there, just to make a few comments there. First of all, this is Homer's deepest comment on why there's so much misery in the world. Every system finally has to give you some kind of insight as to why there's so much misery in the world. That, you know, misery in the world is ABC. If you read the Odyssey, and just before you get to book 9, the very end of book 8, Homer presents through the speech there his view that the misery of the world takes place for the singing of men hereafter, for art, for poetry, for movies and novels, and that's why we have so many wars all the time, you see. It's because it's giving us beauty, something, you know, beauty is the main thing in the cosmos. And beauty here means order, harmony, proportion, everything being where it belongs. And, according to Apollo's injunctions, where insofar as we're humans, where we're doing our best. So it's a function of excellence, so the best is involved always in this Greek kind of looking at what life is all about. But the best at the cosmic level is simply order, the best order, when everything is where it belongs. A king is assassinated, we have to revenge it. Otherwise, there's ugliness. So if you're reading the whole story of the Oedipus the king, notice how much ugliness will then be mentioned. Not his wickedness, but the ugliness of what he has done. How could you have done this? It's so horrible, it's so ugly. They never call him wicked. All right? So it's an aesthetic morality that's governing everything. Things happen according to an aesthetic justice. Zeus is identified with justice, but you know, what kind of justice, we remember in the Odysseus? Why should Odysseus have to suffer for what he did to the guy who was trying to eat him? And he, you know, what? Because that's the order. You know, Cyclops is higher in the order. So you have to have these three things in mind: the importance of the polis, seeking to do your best. Okay, and then you'll understand what the symbol of Oedipus is meant to be produced for us. But you'll only understand it if you take out of your own mind any rationalistic or monotheistic or any other kind of morality that has a personal element in it, or a human element, or motivations, circumstances. You know, no court of law today, in most places of the world, would condemn Oedipus for what he did. He didn't know what he was doing. He did his best to avoid doing it. He did it in self-defense. But you see, that's another system of justice. All right? You need to understand different understandings of justice to see which one you're really operating according to. You know, in the world today, you know, people claim to be in one system, but if you see what they're actually doing, they're actually in a different system. So the cosmos is primarily a function of order. The cosmos means order, but the beautiful order. It's an aesthetic conception of the world. It's impersonal. It's not made for human in fulfillment. The world is so dense with a cosmic level, a political level, a private level, that nobody can ever really make full sense of it. So blindness is our sort of our natural human condition. We can never see how everything is operating, and so the tragedy for Oedipus is that he's very, he functions at the political and the private level, but he's blind at the cosmic level. And how can you ever get the three together? He's not being blamed for it. It's more of a description. When you think that just by using reason and doing your best, you're going to have happiness and all of that, then you're not in a tragic world. In this tragic world, he's doing his best, he's a great man, but the world itself is too complex, too ambiguous. The truth is hidden. You have to wait for it to decide to reveal itself. Reality, appearance can be totally opposite to one another. He appears to be in the last words of the play and the main climax of the play, the chorus. That's the heart there. The appearance. In appearance you appear to be the best. In appearance you appear to be the happiest. In appearance you appear to be this. In reality you are the worst. So this is the tragic gap between appearance and reality. It's not a question of going more deeply into the appearance so that you can find the truth, like in rationalism. But in tragedy, the more you go through the appearance, the more you're quite likely to find that the truth is the opposite of what the appearance was, but in a tragic way. That's what happens to him. He seems to be the happiest, the greatest ruler, all that. He winds up being the most miserable of men. This is the world. This is a description of the world, in other words. It's just given. It's just the way things are, lots. The ultimate principle are the moirai, that no one, not even Zeus, can transcend. The gods are immortal and powerful, but they're not perfect or benevolent. Look up some of these, references I've given you here to see what Sophocles is presenting as their view of the gods, their view of the cosmos, not your view or my view or anybody's view. Human excellence, morality, I've covered these. So I'm hoping with what I have been able to give you in this short period, you have sufficient material to then read the rest of the sheets I've handed out to you. Hopefully you can make some sense of it, and hopefully with your teachers you can benefit. Thank you.